The urgency of the hour is not just about time. IT is about what time reveals. IT is about the kind of person you are becoming in the unseen hours, when no one is watching, when the world is still and silent, and the only sound is the one inside your chest, beating, calling, aching for more. The 4 a.m. hour is not some magical number. It's a symbol, a declaration, a confrontation. ID confronts your comforts, your excuses, and your passivity. ID asks, what are you doing with the life you've been given? And ID doesn't ask politely. ID demands an answer because this hour is sacred, not because of what ID is, but because of what you choose to do with ID. The world has lulled many to sleep, not just physical sleep, but a deeper one, a sleep of purpose, of discipline, of vision. People are drifting through their days like shadows. They wake up when the alarm tells them, they move because their schedule requires IT, and they wait for the next thing to fill their time. But a hive, you woman, doesn't wait for permission. She doesn't need the world to give her a reason to rise. She is the reason. The hour is urgent because time doesn't wait, and calling doesn't bend to comfort. Each moment that passes is either wasted or invested. There is no neutral ground, and the 4 a.m. hour makes that painfully clear. At 4 a.m., no one applauds you. No one posts your name on a feed. The spotlight is gone, and the room is cold. It is then that your intentions are tested. What you do at this hour tells the truth about what you believe. Do you believe in your purpose enough to inconvenience your comfort? Do you believe in your identity enough to rise while others sleep? Because rising early isn't about ego, it's about urgency. It's about recognizing that you don't have time to play small, to shrink back, to delay the discipline that your future self is begging you for. Too many women have been told to wait, to slow down, to soften their ambition so they don't intimidate, but urgency has no patience for that. The clock is ticking. The assignment on your life cannot be postponed forever. There are battles to be won, lies to be broken, lives to be changed, and some of those changes begin in the dark, quiet hours when you choose to rise rather than rest. This isn't about grinding yourself into burnout. It's about spiritual readiness, mental clarity, emotional preparation. You don't wake up at 4 a.m. to perform. You wake up to prepare, and preparation always precedes power. There's something different about a woman who honors the early hour. She carries something in her spirit that isn't loud, but it's undeniable. She's not chasing attention. She's building something. She's rooted. She's disciplined. She knows that this hour is not just a discipline of the body, but of the soul. IT is a training ground, a forge, a place where the noise of the world dies down enough for you to hear the truth again, to remember what matters, to fight for focus in a world that profits from your distraction. The urgency of the hour reveals what you prioritize. IT shows what you're willing to sacrifice. Sleep, comfort, ease. These things are not bad, but they are not always best. Sometimes you have to leave the comfort of the bed to step into the war room of destiny. And that choice to rise, to kneel, to plan, to pray, to stretch, builds something in you that cannot be taught in public. IT must be forged in private. That's why this hour matters, because IT separates those who talk from those who train, those who wish from those who work. There's a holy kind of pressure in the early morning. IT doesn't come from comparison or competition. IT comes from calling. You feel IT not because someone else is doing more, but because you know there is more in you that's waiting to be drawn out. And every day that passes without discipline dulls the blade of your effectiveness. You weren't made to be dull. You weren't made to be numb. You were made to be sharp, ready, present, awake. The urgency of the hour will not wait until your life is convenient. IT does not care if you are tired or busy. IT knocks, IT whispers, IT urges, and either you answer IT or you ignore IT, but ignoring IT does not stop its passing. The throne doesn't move toward you. You move toward IT. Not with entitlement, but with effort. Not with ease, but with endurance. Many people want the crown, but few are willing to rise for IT, to rise before the world expects anything from them, to claim the first fruits of the day for something greater than scrolling or sleeping in. The 4 a.m. mindset is not about perfection. IT is about pursuit. IT is the pursuit of the woman you are called to become, and that woman is not built in front of crowds. She is built in the quiet, in the dark, in the moments no one claps for, and that is why this hour is sacred. The urgency of the hour is not a burden. IT is a blessing. IT is time that has not yet been claimed by noise or pressure or expectation. IT is a space in which you can breathe, think, build, and hear, and what you do with that space will echo in the way you live your day. When you win the morning, you lead the day, not with chaos, but with clarity. Not with anxiety, but with authority. That's what the high value woman understands, that a reign does not begin when she walks into a room. IT begins when she wakes up with resolve, when she remembers who she is before the world tells her who to be, when she refuses to waste another minute bowing to comfort because she was made to rule. There is an urgency to this moment, and the clock keeps ticking, not to scare you, but to sober you, to stir something deep in you that knows time is short, life is fleeting, and purpose is not passive. The time is now, the throne is waiting, the hour has come. Identity and worth are not things you stumble upon by accident. They are not handed to you by the world, and they are certainly not defined by the noise around you. They are planted deep within you, placed there with intention, with design, with destiny. But we live in a culture that has worked tirelessly to blur that truth. IT tells women who they are based on how they look, what they do, how much they make, who they impress, and how many people applaud. IT creates illusions and calls them identities. IT teaches performance instead of purpose, but identity, real identity, does not need a platform. IT doesn't beg for validation. IT stands, IT breathes, IT knows. A high value woman knows who she is, not because someone else told her, but because she has fought to remember. She has peeled back the lies, wrestled with the doubts, and chosen to believe that her worth does not rise and fall with someone else's opinion. She does not wake up trying to earn her value. She wakes up walking in IT. She doesn't need a spotlight to be seen, because she already knows she was seen before the foundation of the world. That kind of knowing changes the way you move. IT changes the way you rise. IT changes the way you face the day, the conflict, the mirror, the world. You don't hustle to prove your worth when you're already anchored in IT, and yet so many women have been trained to perform for value instead of live from value. To be palatable, to be perfect, to be productive, because somewhere along the way they were told that their identity was tied to their ability to meet expectations. But you were never created to live by someone else's checklist. Your identity is not a job title, it's not a dress size, it's not your relationship status, it's not your trauma, it's not your mistakes. IT is not something you have to create, it's something you uncover, because it's already been spoken over you. There is nothing more dangerous to the world's systems than a woman who knows her worth, not because she's arrogant, but because she's immovable, because she can no longer be manipulated. She no longer compromises her voice for a seat at a table that was never meant to hold her crown. When you know who you are, you stop chasing things that were never meant for you. You stop lowering your standards, your vision, your values, just to fit into a mold that was designed to contain you. You were not made to be contained, you were made to be called, and being called doesn't mean being popular. IT doesn't mean being accepted by everyone. Sometimes IT means standing alone. Sometimes IT means walking away. Sometimes IT means being misunderstood. But a woman rooted in her identity is not swayed by the fear of rejection. She has already accepted herself. She has already aligned her heart with truth. She doesn't crumble when someone questions her worth. She grieves for those who don't know theirs, because she understands that her value was never up for debate. There's a quiet power in a woman who doesn't flinch when overlooked, who doesn't fold when forgotten, who doesn't shrink when things get hard. Because her identity is not circumstantial, IT is not seasonal, it's not based on the outcome of a day or the approval of a person. IT is grounded in something eternal, something unshakable, and when you live from that place, you walk different. You don't apologize for taking up space. You don't play small to make others feel more comfortable. You don't defer your dreams because someone else said they were too big. But this kind of identity isn't built overnight. IT is built in the dark, in the silence, in the struggle. IT is forged when you decide to look inward instead of outward, when you silence the noise and ask yourself, who am I, really? Not who they say I am. Not who I've pretended to be, but who was I made to be before the world gave me a mask to wear? That's the question that changes everything. Because when you begin to answer it honestly, humbly, boldly, you find something more than self-confidence. You find truth, and truth doesn't just set you free, it keeps you free. This is why identity and worth matter so much, because everything flows from them, your choices, your boundaries, your relationships, your discipline, your habits. When you know who you are, you protect your time, you guard your mind, you pursue what aligns with your values. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't even trying to understand you. You stop watering dead plants hoping they'll bloom. You stop waiting for someone to choose you and start choosing yourself, not from a place of pride, but from a place of clarity, because you've finally remembered that you were chosen long before anyone had the power to accept or reject you. And that remembrance is sacred. Ideas war, because everything in the world will try to make you forget: the ads, the images, the influencers, the pressure, the silence, the fear. They all conspire to make you question what you already know deep down, that you are valuable, you are called, and you are enough, not because you've earned it, but because you were created with intention. And no amount of striving can add to what's already true. There's a kind of dignity that comes with owning your identity, a kind of peace. You no longer chase attention, you give presence, you no longer compete. You collaborate. You no longer cling to things that don't serve your growth. You release, you breathe, you lead. You walk in rooms knowing that even if no one recognizes your worth, IT does not diminish. You're not waiting for validation. You carry ID. You carry ID in your eyes, your words, your posture, your purpose. The world cannot define what ID did not create. That's why it's dangerous to let ID name you. When you let culture define your identity, you will always be at the mercy of its trends. But when you root your identity in something eternal, you become untouchable. Not in a prideful way, but in a way that protects your soul from being tossed around by every voice that tries to tell you who you should be. You stop outsourcing your worth to people who don't even know how to value themselves. And instead, you begin to live from overflow, not desperation. Knowing your identity allows you to build. IT gives you the foundation to dream, to plan, to rise early, to push through resistance, to lead others, to rule your throne, not out of fear, but out of faith. Because when you know who you are, you don't beg for a crown. You rise and wear the one that's already yours. Discipline before sunrise is not about impressing anyone. It's not about performing. It's not about proving how strong or motivated you are to the world. It's about ownership. It's about alignment. It's about saying, I will no longer allow the day to master me. I will rise and master the day. Before the texts come, before the demands show up, before the pressure floods in, there is a sacred moment of choice. Will you rise or will you remain? And in that moment, a woman of discipline does not ask herself how she feels. She simply remembers who she is. There is a myth that discipline has to feel good, that somehow when you get IT, when you're finally that woman, waking up early and pushing through discomfort will suddenly become easy. But discipline isn't born from ease. It's born from conviction, from clarity, from the decision that your future is worth more than your comfort, that the woman you are becoming will require a little bit of fire in the morning, and so you rise, not because it's always inspiring, not because the world claps for IT, but because you've made a vow to yourself: I do not betray the vision that was entrusted to me. There's something unglamorous about this hour. IT strips you of excuses. There's no audience, no social media filter, no music pumping to hype you up. It's just you, the silence, and the choice, and that's where the real transformation happens. Not in the loud public declarations, but in the private moments where you choose structure over sloth, discipline over delay, intention over impulse, because discipline before sunrise is about training your spirit to lead your life, not your emotions. It's about forming habits that support your vision even when your mood doesn't. The woman who rises early doesn't always feel like IT, but she understands something deeper, that her body and mind will eventually serve what her spirit commands. She knows that if she wants to rule her day, she has to be the one to meet IT first, and so she wakes, not with a rush, but with reverence. She builds rhythms into the dawn. She doesn't fumble into her purpose. She walks toward IT prepared. She stretches, she breathes, she writes, she prays, she plans, and in those quiet minutes she is not just doing tasks, she is forming character. Discipline is not punishment, it's a pathway. It's a way to honor what you say matters to you. So many people live fractured lives, not because they don't have dreams, but because they've never trained their flesh to follow through. They make promises with passion, but break them with passivity. But the woman of discipline keeps showing up, even when no one is watching, even when it's cold, even when yesterday's battle left her tired. She still rises, because she's not ruled by the day she rules IT. This hour doesn't lie to you. The alarm goes off and it's just you and the mirror. No distractions, no flattery, no faking. And that's where discipline sharpens you, because in those moments, you either lean into who you're called to be, or you lean away. There is no in-between, and you can feel can't you, that pull to stay where it's warm, to bury your calling beneath one more hour of sleep. But when you remember the cost of delay, you move, you swing your legs off the bed, not with ease, but with resolve. You don't wait to feel ready. You train yourself to be ready. You train yourself by doing the same thing over and over, until your habits become harder to break than your laziness. You build systems that carry you through the days when your strength feels small. Because you understand that success doesn't come from intensity. IT comes from consistency. That the woman who rises once and then fades is not as powerful as the woman who rises daily, quietly, faithfully. Not just because she has goals, but because she has discipline, and that discipline becomes her protection. IT protects her from the chaos, from the emotional roller coasters, from the crisis of identity that comes when you let the world define what your day should look like. She doesn't let the day decide who she is. She tells the day who she's already decided to be, and that begins before the sun is even up, before the world tries to steal her attention, before the demands try to scatter her focus. She starts from center, and center is only found in the discipline of the early hours. You don't drift into excellence, you drive there. You don't stumble into purpose. You steward IT. That's why you rise. Not because it's fun, but because it's formation. Discipline before sunrise is not glamour, it's gritty. It's choosing the path that no one sees so you can live a life no one else dares to build. And you do IT not once, but again and again. When it's raining, when you're sore, when your heart is heavy, you still rise, not because you're unshakable, but because your why is stronger than your what-ifs. This kind of discipline leaks into everything. IT shows up in how you speak, how you walk, how you carry yourself. You begin to trust yourself because you know, you've seen IT firsthand, that you are capable of following through, and that trust becomes confidence. Not the kind that shouts to prove itself, but the kind that stands grounded and quiet, because IT knows, IT remembers, it's been tested, and IT didn't fold. The 4 a.m. mindset is not about the clock, it's about the character. The clock just exposes IT. Anyone can dream, anyone can make a plan, but not everyone is willing to pay the price, to choose discomfort, to prioritize what matters over what's easy. But when you do, when you choose that narrow road, day after day, you start to become someone different. Someone solid, someone wise, someone awake. There will always be reasons not to rise. There will always be a voice saying, just stay a little longer, rest a little more. And rest is not the enemy. There is a time for that. But when you confuse rest with resistance, you lose. When you call procrastination peace, you forfeit your growth. Discipline before sunrise isn't about ignoring your need for rest. It's about knowing the difference between rest and retreat. One refuels you, the other robs you. You don't need to be extreme. You don't need to wake up every day and move mountains, but you do need to move. You need to show up for yourself. You need to learn to hear that quiet voice inside that says, this matters, and respond to ID not later, but now. And that response, repeated over and over again, becomes your rhythm, your anchor, your legacy, because long before the crown ever rests on your head, ideas forged in the morning hours, shaped by the choices no one sees, the discipline no one applauds, and the devotion that only you can choose. Purpose over comfort is a hard choice because ID costs you something real. ID will never be convenient. ID will never feel natural to the part of you that craves ease. ID will always come with a price. But the high-value woman has already decided her life is not going to be shaped by what's comfortable. ID will be shaped by what's true, and that kind of decision doesn't come lightly. It's made in the furnace. It's made when the heart is laid bare and you realize that comfort might make you feel safe, but only purpose will make you whole. Every day, we are given the option to choose the path of least resistance. And every day, something inside us begs us to take ID. Stay where it's warm. Stay where it's familiar. Stay where it's soft. But that voice will kill your purpose if you let ID. Comfort will lull you into mediocrity. ID will sing you lullabies while your calling withers. ID will tell you you've done enough when you've only scratched the surface. ID will build a nest around your excuses and call ID peace. But peace is not the absence of difficulty. Peace is the presence of alignment. When your actions match your assignment, there's a reason so few people live with purpose, because ID hurts. Purpose demands more. Purpose breaks you open and invites you to bleed for something that will outlive you. Purpose doesn't care how tired you are. Purpose doesn't negotiate. ID knocks on your door in the middle of your comfort and asks you, is this really what you were made for? And when you answer yes to purpose, you say no to everything that numbs you. You say no to small thinking. You say no to cheap entertainment. You say no to the comfort of staying unseen, unchallenged, unbothered. There's nothing wrong with enjoying life, but when enjoyment becomes your compass, you get lost. You forget why you started. You forget who you are. You end up living a life that looks good on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. Because the truth is, your soul was never designed to be satisfied by comfort. ID was designed to be set on fire. You were made to carry something weighty, something eternal, and that kind of fire will burn through anything that isn't rooted in truth. So yes, it's uncomfortable. But discomfort isn't your enemy. Sometimes it's your awakening. Comfort will let you sleep through your own calling, but purpose shakes you. ID wakes you up before the alarm goes off. ID calls you higher. ID calls you deeper. ID asks you to leave the shore and step into waters you can't control. ID asks you to let go of the script you've been clinging to and trust something greater. ID asks you to build when no one claps, to serve when no one thanks you, to show up when ID doesn't feel fair, because purpose doesn't operate on applause. It's rooted in assignment, and when you say yes to ID, you step into a power that comfort could never give you. There is a war happening every morning between your potential and your patterns. The pattern says, stay in bed, hit snooze, you've earned ID. But purpose says, you weren't made for this bed, you were made to build. The pattern says, just do enough to get by. But purpose says, you're not here to survive, you're here to lead. Every choice you make either reinforces the lie that comfort is your reward, or affirms the truth that purpose is your path. And the difference between the two will shape your life, your influence, and your legacy. You can't serve two masters. You can't hold purpose in one hand and comfort in the other and expect to be powerful. One of them will require your full devotion. One of them will ask you to crucify the parts of you that prefer ease over growth. And that's why it's so difficult, because most people don't want to die to themselves. They don't want to let go of their comfort zones, their habits, their vices. They don't want to live in the tension that purpose demands. But that tension is sacred. That tension is where transformation begins. Val, you woman has chosen the hard road, not because she loves pain, but because she loves what pain produces. She has seen the fruit of staying faithful when ID would have been easier to quit. She has walked through fire and come out refined, not because she's superhuman, but because she said yes to purpose when everything in her body screamed no. And that kind of woman carries something different. You can see it in her eyes. You can feel it in her presence. She's not here to play games. She's not here to be liked. She's here to build what she was born to build. Purpose isn't a brand. It's not something you wear. It's not an aesthetic. It's a burden, a holy weight. And if you've ever truly carried it, you know it's not pretty. It's not always Instagram worthy. It doesn't always come with affirmation. Sometimes it comes with loneliness. Sometimes it comes with failure. Sometimes it comes with silence. But you still choose it because something inside you knows comfort will never satisfy the ache you feel to matter, to contribute, to leave a mark. And that mark can only be made by someone who refuses to settle for easy. It's not about chasing struggle. It's about choosing meaning over numbness. There will be seasons where you're tempted to shrink, where you'll want to retreat, where you'll wonder if it's even worth it, but that's when you dig deeper. That's when you remember why you started. You don't need the whole staircase. You just need the next step. And with every step you take away from comfort and toward purpose, you become more of who you're meant to be, not in theory, in truth, in action, in resolve. The world will offer you 1,000 shortcuts, 1,000 ways to coast, but you weren't made to coast. You were made to conquer, not other people, not circumstances, yourself, your own doubt, your own resistance, your own fear. And that victory is only found when you stop chasing convenience and start chasing your calling. That's what separates the ones who live average from the ones who live anointed. Not their talent, not their opportunities, their willingness to choose purpose, even when it hurts. You don't become powerful by choosing what feels good. You become powerful by choosing what is good, and what is good will often cost you your comfort, but what you gain in return is unmatched. You gain clarity, you gain resilience, you gain peace. Not the shallow kind, but the deep kind. The kind that comes when you know you're living in alignment with what was placed inside you long before you could name it. The moment you choose purpose, everything changes. Not because your life gets easier, but because your life gets weight. ID gets direction, ID gets depth, and from that place you don't just move, you move with meaning. You rise not for hype, but for heaven. You act not to impress, but to impact. You no longer need comfort to feel secure. You've found something better. You've found your reason. A divine calling isn't something you choose. It's something that chooses you. IT doesn't come dressed in comfort. IT doesn't knock politely. IT interrupts. IT unsettles. IT whispers in the quiet and then roars in the silence until you can no longer ignore IT. And when you finally hear IT, not just in your ears, but in your bones, everything else begins to feel too small, too easy, too temporary. That's the weight of a divine calling. IT ruins you for a normal life, because once you've tasted the weight of eternity, distractions lose their flavor. A divine calling will not flatter you. IT will not pamper you. IT will demand everything. IT will ask you to lay down your plans, your pride, your performance, and pick up something much heavier. Obedience, not success, not applause, obedience. And that obedience won't always feel logical. IT won't always make sense to the people around you. But a woman who is called isn't living to be understood. She's living to be faithful. She doesn't ask for permission from the world to be who she is. She listens to the voice that called her out and follows IT, even when the road is lonely. There's a sacred unrest that comes with a calling. IT keeps you up at night. IT stirs in your spirit when others are content to settle. IT won't let you numb out like you used to, because once your spirit is awakened to its assignment, comfort becomes a cage, distraction becomes poison. You feel it in your chest, that ache, that pull, that holy tension. And it's not ambition, it's not ego, it's something deeper. It's a summons, and if you've heard IT, truly heard IT, then you know IT won't let you go. You can try to run from IT. You can try to bury IT in routine. You can try to drown IT in noise, but a divine calling is patient. IT waits, and IT will find you again, in the quiet, in the stillness, in the middle of your busyness and burnout. IT will whisper again, you were made for more than this. And when IT does, you'll remember, You'll remember the dream that wasn't yours but was placed inside you, the vision you didn't ask for but now can't live without, the fire that started with a whisper but grew into a furnace. A divine calling doesn't begin when everything is in order. It begins in the middle of the mess, when you feel least qualified, least prepared, least confident. That's where ID speaks, because it's not about your ability. It's about your availability. It's not about being strong enough. It's about being surrendered enough. God doesn't call the flawless, He calls the willing. And when He does, He equips, He strengthens. He refines, but He never softens the demand, because He knows what's on the other side of your obedience is far greater than anything you would settle for in your own strength. There is nothing casual about a divine calling. ID carries weight, ID sets you apart, ID disrupts your plans and replaces them with purpose. And once you accept ID, you can't go back to living like everyone else. You walk differently, you speak differently. You guard your time, your energy, your heart, not because you're better, but because you're accountable. You've been entrusted with something sacred, and you don't play with sacred things. You begin to realize that the calling isn't just about doing something for the world, it's about becoming someone through the process. The assignment will stretch you, break you, humble you, but ID will also transform you. And in the fire of that transformation, your pride burns away, your excuses burn away, your need for validation burns away, and what's left is someone who's been marked, not by popularity, not by performance, but by purpose. A woman who knows who sent her, who knows why she wakes up, who knows the cost of saying no to the call, and has decided she's not going to live that kind of life. That kind of clarity changes everything. You stop chasing opportunities and start building obedience. You stop trying to impress and start trying to impact. You stop living for now and start living for eternal, because you know this isn't about you. ID never was. It's about what's been placed inside of you. It's about the people you're called to reach, the lives you're called to touch, the work you're called to do that no one else can do in the way you were created to do. ID. There will be resistance. There will be warfare. Every calling comes with a cost. You'll face rejection. You'll face misunderstanding. You'll face seasons of silence where IT feels like heaven has gone quiet, and all you have is the last word He gave you. And in those seasons, you'll be tempted to quit. You'll be tempted to trade your calling for something more comfortable. But that's the moment where you have to remember, you were never promised easy. You were promised significance, and significance doesn't come cheap. You're not here to survive. You're here to steward, to carry the weight of what you've been given, and not drop IT when IT gets heavy. You're not here to coast. You're here to conquer, not people, not platforms, but doubt, fear, flesh. You're here to war against the lie that you're not enough, that you missed your moment, that you're too late or too damaged or too tired. Because none of that is true. If the breath is still in your lungs, the calling is still on your life. If the fire is still burning, there's still work to do. There's a discipline that comes with calling. A sobriety, a seriousness. You begin to see time differently. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone trying to prove her worth, but as someone who's already been chosen, already been set apart, already been sent. You don't need the world to affirm IT. You walk like it's already settled, because IT is, and that kind of woman is dangerous, not because she's loud, but because she's rooted, because she knows who she is, and more importantly, she knows who she is. She doesn't chase every trend. She doesn't need every room. She doesn't say yes to everything that glitters. She listens for one voice, one instruction, one whisper, and when she hears IT, she moves. She acts, she obeys, not for applause, not for recognition, but because she's on assignment, and that assignment is not up for debate. A divine calling will cost you your life as you knew IT, but IT will give you one you could have never imagined. IT will stretch you past your limits and then fill you with strength that doesn't come from this world. IT will strip away everything false and leave you with something unshakable. IT will turn the ordinary into the sacred. IT will take your pain and give IT purpose. IT will take your weakness and make IT a weapon. And IT will do all of this, not for your comfort, but for His glory. So if you feel the fire, don't run from IT. Run with ID. If you feel the tension, don't silence ID. Lean into ID. You are not here by accident. You are not a mistake. You are not just passing time. You are marked. You are chosen. You are called. And the call isn't waiting for you to be ready. It's waiting for you to say yes.